Verses 1 to 5. The sin of Israel, to which they were enticed by the daughters of Moab and Midian, they were guilty both of corporal and spiritual whoredoms, for Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, v3. Not all, nor the most, but very many, were taken in this snare. Now concerning this observe, 1. That Balak, by the advice of Balaam, cast this stumbling block before the children of Israel, Revelation 2:14. Note, those are our worst enemies that draw us to sin, for that is the greatest mischief any man can do us. If Balak had drawn out his armed men against them to fight them, Israel had bravely resisted, and no doubt had been more than conquerors, but now that he sends his beautiful women among them, and invites them to his idolatrous feasts, the Israelites basely yield, and are shamefully overcome. Those are smitten with this harlots that could not be smitten with his sword. Note, we are more endangered by the charms of a smiling world than by the terrors of a frowning world. That the daughters of Moab were their tempters and conquerors. Ever since Eve was first in the transgression, the fairer sex, though the weaker, has been a snare to many. Yes, strong men have been wounded and slain by the lips of the strange woman. Prov 7:26. Witness Solomon, whose wives were shares and nets to him. Eccle 7:26. That whoredom and idolatry went together. They first defiled and debauched their consciences, by committing lewdness with the women, and then were easily drawn, in complaisance to them, and in contempt of the God of Israel, to bow down to their idols. And they were more likely to do so if, as it is commonly supposed, and seems probable by the joining of them together, the uncleanness committed was a part of the worship and service performed to Baal Peor. Those that have broken the fences of modesty will never be held by the bonds of piety, and those that have dishonored themselves by fleshly lusts will not scruple to dishonor God by idolatrous worships, and for this they are justly given up yet further to vile affections. That by eating of the idolatrous sacrifices they joined themselves to Baal Peor to whom they were offered, which the Apostle urges as a reason why Christians should not eat things offered to idols, because thereby they had fellowship with the devils to whom they were offered. 1 Cor 10:20. It is called eating the sacrifices of the dead, PS 106:28, not only because the idol itself was a dead thing, but because the person represented by it was some great hero, who since his death was deified, as saints in the Roman Church are canonized. 5. It was great aggravation of the sin that Israel abode in Shittim, where they had the land of Canaan in view, and were just ready to enter and take possession of it. It was the highest degree of treachery and ingratitude to be false to their God, whom they had found so faithful to them, and to eat of idol sacrifices when they were ready to be feasted so richly on God's favors. God's just displeasure against them for this sin. Israel's whoredoms did that which all Balaam's enchantments could not do. They set God against them. Now he was turned to be their enemy, and fought against them. So many of the people, nay, so many of the princes, were guilty, that the sin became national, and for it God was wroth with the whole congregation. A plague immediately broke out, for we read of the staying of it, v8, and of the number that died of it, v9, but no mention of the beginning of it, which therefore must be implied in those words, v3, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. It is said expressly, PS 106:29, the plague broke in. Note, epidemical diseases are the fruits of God's anger, and the just punishments of epidemical sins. One infection follows the other. The plague, no doubt, fastened on those that were most guilty, who were soon made to pay dearly for their forbidden pleasures, and though now God does not always plague such sinners, as he did here, yet that word of God will be fulfilled, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. 1 Cor 3:17. The ringleaders are ordered to be put to death by the hand of public justice, which will be the only way to stay the plague. v4 Take the heads of the people, that is, of that part of the people that went out of the camp of Israel into the country of Moab, to join in their idolatries, take them and hang them up before the sun, as sacrifices to God's justice, and for a terror to the rest of the people. The judges must first order them to be slain with the sword, v5, and their dead bodies must be hanged up, that the stupid Israelites, seeing their leaders and princes so severely punished for their whoredom and idolatry, without any regard to their quality, might be possessed with a sense of the evil of the sin and the terror of God's wrath against them. Ringleaders in sin ought to be made examples of justice.